what's happening in the world right now coming up on NTD News. First, our top stories. President Biden meeting with the UK Prime Minister and King Charles ahead of a high-stakes NATO summit. And Russia responds to the latest calls by Ukraine to join NATO and how China comes into play. Moscow is saying Putin held talks with the leader of the Wagner Mercenary group in the Kremlin just days after the short-lived mutiny. Congress is back in session and we'll see some interesting hearings this week. FBI Director Christopher Wray, PGA golf officials, and others will testify. We'll give you a summary of what to expect. Disgraced gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar is stabbed in prison. He's serving a 40-year prison sentence on charges related to sexually abusing gymnasts. Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Chris Beers. Our top news: President Biden in the UK today meeting with the British Prime Minister and King Charles. That's as he's heading to Lithuania later today for a high-stakes NATO summit. Joining us now is NTD's White House correspondent from the capital of Lithuania. Iris, what are we going to see on this trip?
Hey, good afternoon, Chris. So before coming here to Vilnius, Lithuania, for a NATO summit slated for tomorrow, President Biden is in the United Kingdom today meeting with the Prime Minister there, Rishi Sunak. The two reaffirmed what they called a rock-solid relationship.
Well, Joe, welcome. It's great to have you here. Back in Downing Street. I think you've been here a few times before, I know, but your first time as president. So we're very privileged and fortunate to have you here. Thanks for coming.
And just now at the Windsor Castle, President Biden met with King Charles, which is the first time the two have met after the king was crowned. But the meetings in UK really just serve as a precursor to what's going to happen here in Vilnius, which is the NATO summit to begin tomorrow. So of course, the big topic of the summit will be the war in Ukraine. And a big discussion or debate going on right now is whether or not, or really when and how, to admit Ukraine into the NATO alliance. So the Ukrainian foreign minister announced today that Ukraine has reached an agreement with NATO, which is to shorten the process for Ukraine to get in by canceling what's called the Membership Action Plan for Ukraine. But that's as President Biden has just stressed on this Sunday that right now is not a good time for Ukraine to join. And even without the war, even after the war, there still should be a process to look at more factors more comprehensively.
I don't think there is unanimity in NATO about whether or not to bring Ukraine into the NATO family now. NATO is a process that takes some time to meet all the qualifications, and from democratization to a whole range of other issues.
Meanwhile, Russia responded on Monday by saying that a Ukrainian membership in NATO would be deemed as, quote, a threat, which demanded a harsh response. And as Western leaders gather here, a top Russian official also visited China, met with Xi Jinping, and said on Monday that, quote, Russia can count on a firm and reliable friendly shoulder in China. So it remains to be seen whether not just the issue of Russia and Ukraine, but also the threats coming from China will become a major topic here at the NATO summit in Vilnius. Chris.
Thanks, Iris. The Biden administration is sending controversial cluster bombs to Ukraine. The bombs are known for killing civilians years after a conflict. Joining us to discuss is international military strategist, retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb. He spent 28 years in military service with 7 years in command and 3 years training military forces for combat. Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me this morning. Good to see you.
Colonel, how is President Biden's decision to send cluster bombs to Ukraine likely to affect U.S. relations with NATO and its other allies?
Well, Chris, it first started off with the fact that the U.S. is one of those few countries that actually haven't signed on to the Oslo Accords regarding the use of cluster munitions, and primarily because of its dangerousness to civilians and how many years they can last on the ground. And Afghanistan is a perfect example of how a country can be covered with mines or various munitions and take decades to clean up. So the concern with this is the fact that we're we're bypassing even some of our own laws, and Biden has waived the rules regarding the use of these munitions overseas. That is causing a direct conflict with many of those NATO nations in Europe who specifically are part of the Oslo Accords, who said they would not take part in the use of these weapons or storage or manufacture as well. So this is just another one of those fractures in the NATO alliance that's really coming at a bad time as they head into the NATO summit this week.
Now, Biden has waived established rules to approve this shipment. Tell us more about these rules, why they were created, and why they were put in place.
Well, they were put in place to minimize the number of duds that could hit the ground. And our rule is a 1%. So clearly, if 100 bomblets are in one of these and one of them doesn't go off, that is what we consider within our own rules average or fair to be working with. The rules that were waived were to say, hey, we're going to allow this to be more of a 3 times that dud rate, and we're going to ship them overseas anyways. That just creates a 3 times more of an opportunity for things bad to happen. And I don't agree with it. I don't like it. But I think that people should know that rule was waived in order to ship these to Ukraine in the first place. And it's important to know that there are many other effects as well besides that.
Now, we're sending a lot of weapons to Ukraine. How is this affecting our own military readiness?
Chris, that's actually one of my chief concerns with all of this. And it's not just around cluster munitions. It's about everything that we send over to Ukraine. Now, everything we're sending there is something we can't use here. Now, some of it, of course, is material that we would probably never use except for in the worst case emergency conditions. But when we're talking about munitions, we're talking about something right now that is going to take another 10 or 15 years for us to replenish our own stockpiles to the point where we are as ready as we truly say we are. And that's my main concern. If we don't want to have a war, start a war here, and we have nothing to fight that war with in the first place. That's really essentially what we've done to ourselves. And it would take that long to replenish these stockpiles if we started today. America has lost a lot of its edge when it comes to our ability to use our industrial base to manufacture things. Does that mean we can't get it back? We can if we have a reason to. But right now, we're sending it overseas, but we're not rebuilding it at the same pace back here the way we should and keeping it for our own military.
Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, International Military Strategist, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good day.
President Biden was criticized for seemingly revealing that the U.S. is low on key munitions related to the war in Ukraine. Some felt Biden exposed a U.S. military weakness in an interview on CNN that aired yesterday.
The Ukrainians are running out of ammunition. The ammunition that they call them 155 millimeter weapons. This is a war relating to munitions, and they're running out of that ammunition, and we're low on it.
Many countries have criticized the U.S. for sending cluster munitions to Ukraine because of their long-term impact and potential for civilian casualties. They're also known for having a high fail rate. Biden defended the move by revealing the U.S. is low on the more desirable form of ammunition. Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. weighed in on the issue. He tweeted that the White House press secretary called the use of cluster bombs a war crime last year, and that Biden himself was opposed to selling them to Israel in 1982. A White House official responded to the criticism. The official told Fox News the military has specific requirements for the weapons and ammunition maintained in reserve in case of military conflict. The official said everything sent to Ukraine is in excess of that. The leader of the Wagner mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, apparently met with President Vladimir Putin just 5 days after the mutiny. A Kremlin spokesman said today that more than 30 military commanders attended. The spokesman said the meeting was held on June 29th, 5 days after the aborted mutiny. Putin was said to have invited 35 people to the 3-hour meeting, including Prigozhin and Wagner unit commanders. Prigozhin was meant to leave for Belarus under the terms of the deal that ended the mutiny, and he did go for a little while. But Belarus President Lukashenko said last week that Prigozhin was back in Russia. He added that Wagner fighters hadn't yet taken up an offer to relocate to Belarus. Disgraced gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar was stabbed in Florida federal prison. He reportedly had an altercation with another prisoner. He's in stable condition. A source told the Associated Press that Nassar was stabbed in the back and chest. Federal officials told Fox News that staff workers to save the victim's life, and one person was taken to a hospital. They did not identify if they were talking about Nassar specifically. Nassar is serving a 40-year sentence. He was convicted of charges related to sexually abusing gymnasts over 2 decades. He worked at Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics. Olympic gymnast Simone Biles is among the more than 150 victims who spoke or submitted statements during Nassar's trial. Victims are suing the FBI for over $1 billion for failing to stop Nassar sooner. Lawmakers are back in D.C. after a July 4th recess, and this week we'll see a number of hearings. Here's an overview of 2 of the more notable ones.
Senators are back in session Monday, while House representatives are set to return on Tuesday. On Wednesday, FBI Director Christopher Wray is scheduled to testify before the House Judiciary Committee. Many are awaiting Wray's testimony as some Republicans are calling for the FBI director to be impeached. The hearing will cover alleged politicization of the FBI under the direction of Wray and Attorney General Merrick Garland. Republicans say many law enforcement agencies hold a bias against and are unfairly targeting Republicans. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced articles of impeachment against Wray in May. She's accusing him of facilitating the development of a federal police force to intimidate, harass, and entrap American citizens that are deemed enemies of the Biden regime. On Tuesday, officials from the PGA Golf Tour will testify before the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. This comes after the PGA Tour merged with Live Golf. The merger is controversial because Live is based in Saudi Arabia, a country with known human rights abuses. Some are accusing the Middle Eastern country of so-called sports washing. This is when nations use sports to create a better image around the world. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal sent a letter to the PGA Tour Commissioner and Live Golf CEO last month. He points out that while few details about the agreement are known, PIF's role as an arm of the Saudi government and PGA Tour's sudden and drastic reversal of position concerning Live Golf raises serious questions regarding the reasons for and terms behind the agreement. The merger between PGA and Live will create a new entity. However, little is known about the exact plans. Names are also not known yet. 2 top PGA officials are set to testify on Tuesday. Congress's biggest priority, however, is government funding. A new deadline is yet again emerging before which Congress has to pass appropriations bills to avoid a default on the U.S. debt. Similar to the situation we recently saw, House Republicans want more spending cuts, going back to 2022 level spending. Lawmakers need to pass a total of 12 appropriations bills ahead of the September 30th deadline.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on the Food and Drug Administration to investigate Prime energy drinks. Schumer accused Prime of targeting children, even though the drinks have more than double the caffeine in a can of Red Bull, or 6 times more caffeine than a can of Coke.
A lot of parents may never heard of it, but their kids have, because Prime is engaged in a vast advertising campaign aimed at kids, even though kids aren't supposed to drink a drink with this much caffeine.
Prime on its website states that its energy drinks are not recommended for children under 18, women who are pregnant or nursing, or individuals who are sensitive to caffeine. Coming up, the mayor of South Fulton, Georgia is arrested on burglary and trespassing charges. And an attorney in Donald Trump's fraud case leaves the role. She has a new job in Trump's Political Action Committee. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
Did you know ESG is impacting every part of your life? From rising gas prices to global food shortages to out-of-control inflation, even losing your freedom of speech and being censored on the internet. It's all being driven by ESG ideology. Who's in control? What can you do about it? Find out in The Shadow State, the first documentary exposing ESG. The ESG movement of governments and corporations operates in the shadows. Only the light of truth can expose it. Watch The Shadow State documentary, streaming now.
Tired of scrolling Netflix? Trying to find something that's worth watching? Want to skip the censorship in mainstream media? Well, now you can with Epic TV. New exclusive content every day with over 100 never-before-seen movies, films, and documentaries. Available and streaming now at your fingertips. For a limited time now, you can get 60% off Epic TV by subscribing or upgrading to a yearly plan. Plus, get an additional $10 credit to rent featured movies on Epic Cinema today. Skip mainstream narratives and find quality family entertainment from the comfort of your very own home. Say no to big tech and subscribe to Epic TV.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Thanks for staying with us. The mayor of South Fulton, Georgia, was arrested on burglary and trespassing charges. South Fulton is part of the Atlanta metro area. After his arrest, Khalid Kamau was released the same day on bond. He was also reportedly ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation. 5 out of 7 city council members sued him earlier this year to remove him from office. One of them will now take over his duties and serve as acting mayor. In their lawsuit, they said he disclosed confidential information for his own benefit and recorded confidential executive sessions. His conflict with the city council has lasted over a year. In June of last year, the city council wanted an investigation into how Kamau used a city-issued credit card. In response, Kamau ordered an investigation into the city council for possible corruption. The first in the nation Republican presidential caucus has officially been scheduled. Iowa Republicans gathered and voted unanimously on the date of January 15th. As in past primary cycles, the Iowa caucus remains the first Republican presidential primary caucus in the nation. It's often described as the first major electoral test for White House contenders. Early contest states like Iowa play a crucial role in selecting the party nominee, since candidates who struggle with fundraising or popularity tend to drop out before campaigning in other states. These states also receive a lot of media attention and become centers for policy debates. The announcement comes as the National Democratic Party in February approved changes to its presidential primary calendar for 2024. South Carolina has replaced Iowa in that party's leadoff spot. Donald Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, has left the former president's legal defense team in the high-stakes New York fraud case. She'll take on a new role. Trump's Save America leadership PAC on Friday said Habba will take over as their legal spokesperson and general counsel. The announcement said Habba's New Jersey law firm will still assist Trump with certain legal matters. Trump Communications Director Stephen Chung said that Alina has worked tirelessly on many of the, quote, witch hunt cases that have been brought against Trump. A specific reason for her departure was not revealed other than it will allow her to devote time to her new duties. Those include serving as Trump's media representative on legal matters. Habba is known for her speech outside Miami courthouse in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. She denounced the federal prosecutors who brought the case. The Biden administration has introduced another new immigration program to allow people from some Latin American nations to enter the United States. Joining us to discuss is Victor Avila, the retired special agent with U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and author of Agent Under Fire. He's also a Texas congressional candidate. Victor Avila, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Victor, how will creating more legal pathways into the United States affect the immigration crisis?
Well, I'm all for bringing people to this country legally. It's just that this administration is the pathways that they're picking and choosing are against our own immigration law, against our own constitution, and even our existing policies that have been in place for many, many years. And so now with this new process of flying people directly from Central America and Colombia into the United States completely violates all that. And it's important to note that this does not exist in the law books. This is being created by this administration. And the question is why? Why are they doing this? And I think it's several things. One, they're circumventing possibly the asylum criteria because they know that most of the people wanting to come to this country do not qualify for our own asylum criteria. And second, they want to, they're pumping these communities with a lot of people from all over the world. And does that mean votes for them? Maybe. Does that mean more representation in Congress as you continue to increase the population in some of these districts that will get more than likely a Democrat representative?
What about the effect these policies will have on drug and human trafficking?
Well, that's the problem that this administration still will not completely address the issues of human smuggling and human trafficking. We see a lot of the videos of the people walking up the river, and that's, by the way, another thing that they don't want to see anymore. It's been damaging to their narrative. But the smuggling, let me tell you, continues to happen through the back of tractor trailers, trunks of vehicles, you name it. People are being smuggled, and of course, the trafficking, something that I touches close to my heart as a subject matter expert in human trafficking investigations. The exploitation of the migrants, especially young women and children, sexual exploitation, forced labor has been a huge uptick in that. That is continuing to pour into this country. They're ignoring that part that the cartels have had a free-for-all in the last couple of years to do it, bringing the people, bringing the drugs, the meth, obviously the fentanyl that continues to kill Americans, and even cocaine all the way up to the White House.
As someone who's been on the front lines of all this, what in your mind needs to be done?
Well, I mean, let me tell you, I'm running for U.S. Congress in District 23, and for many reasons. One is to finally put an end to this, but specifically because I believe we're going to make some major changes in 2024, and you need someone down there that's going to understand how to deal with not just border security, but as a former diplomat, how to deal with Mexico, how to deal with Europe, and this foreign policy that I think is very important. It's a national security threat on top of everything that we must not forget, and the public safety of this country, to me, is premier, and we must deal with China and Iran. Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba. I mean, this is the big picture that we need to see, that the role that they play in the big picture of the open border system that this administration does. Let me tell you, we can fix this. We can fix this pretty quickly. Some of it will be turned immediately around. Others are a little bit more complicated, but will make a major and quick impact immediately in 2024.
Victor Avila, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me today.
Still to come, venture capital firms are fleeing downtown San Francisco, following the trend of businesses and retailers. And comedian and author Sarah Silverman is bringing a class action lawsuit against the makers of ChatGPT. She alleges copyright infringement. We'll have the details soon when we return.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? Or spending late nights uncovering deep government corruption? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
Good morning. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
The stories that need to be told, the voices that need to be heard, the truth that you need to see. Get unbiased and in-depth news. Don't miss a beat. I'm Stephanie Cox. At NTD, we're here for you.
Thanks for staying with us. In San Francisco, venture capital firms are joining retailers and other businesses in finding homes outside of downtown. Some are opting for the Presidio, a former military base that is now a national park.
Some of San Francisco's venture capital firms are ditching downtown and putting down roots in a nearby national park. With more than a third of all U.S. venture capital funding going to startups last year, where the firms end up could have implications for the broader tech industry. This is the Presidio, a former military base turned national park next to the iconic Golden Gate Bridge. Headline is one of the VC firms that moved here from an eye-catching skyscraper downtown.
But it did feel a little bit more corporate. It was hard to get to. There was a lot of security.
Combined with the pandemic, shuttered businesses, and a city center already struggling with drugs and homelessness, managing partner Matthias Schilling says it was time to make a move.
And then we ultimately came, to the decision to come here to the Presidio because it really represented what we thought the future of work should be.
Molly Martell is vice president of brand at Headline.
Downtown San Francisco was never a place I wanted to go. If I had a client meeting downtown, I wanted to be in and out as efficiently as possible. And I think that part of town just hasn't evolved in so long. And my hope is that with all the attention it's getting now, post-COVID, and with people not wanting to spend time there because they're not being forced to, I hope that that's a catalyst for change for that neighborhood.
There aren't stats on the number of VCs per neighborhood, but consider this. San Francisco's overall commercial vacancy rate is currently 35%. Pre-pandemic, it was 4%. But in the Presidio, the vacancy rate is currently about 5%, despite higher average prices. Here's the executive director of CBRE's Tech Insight, Colin Yasakochi.
We do have this phenomenon that we call flight to quality, where companies are looking at how do I move into better quality space that's going to be more attractive, more conducive for my employees to come to the office, to be able to collaborate, and in the case of tech companies, to innovate. So we do see that happening.
A similar story has played out among other businesses and retailers. In June, the owner of this downtown mall said it was giving it up after 20 years. Foot traffic was down more than 40% compared to 2019. For its part, a spokesperson for the mayor's office says the government wants to support businesses of all types in all neighborhoods.
Popular artificial intelligence bot ChatGPT is being sued. Some big names in the entertainment industry are bringing a class action lawsuit against the company behind ChatGPT. How is it likely to play out? NTD Business's Don Ma speaks with the patent professor.
So joining me is the patent professor, John Rizvi. He's a registered patent attorney and adjunct professor of patent law at Nova Southeastern Law School in Florida. So John, it seems like so many people right now are filing class action lawsuits against ChatGPT and OpenAI. I think the latest and most prominent being the stand-up comedian Sarah Silverman. There were a number of authors as well in the previous week. They're all suing OpenAI for using their content without permission to train their artificial intelligence language models. So John, can you tell us if there's any merit to the suits?
Yeah, well, there certainly is. So this is not something I expect to be dismissed on like a summary judgment motion or anything like that. There's certainly merit. an owner of intellectual property, particularly copyrights, they have the right to determine who they give permission to for using that work, when they give permission, and the manner in which that work is used. So the central issue here is that these authors are claiming that the only way that ChatGPT is able to provide such a detailed summary of their books is if they have access to complete work. And of course, I think the case is going to turn on where ChatGPT is getting that information and what databases they're using, because their claim is going to be like, hey, we're not going to the original work, we're simply accessing the internet database, but they're not revealing their sources, and that's problematic.
Isn't use of data from the public domain considered fair use?
So fair use is certainly a defense to copyright infringement. One of the major factors for fair use is whether the use is of a commercial intent or if it's of a nonprofit intent. So in the past, when there's a Supreme Court decided a case on Sony VHS cassettes and whether homeowners, individual consumers, had the right to record shows and watch them later on, and that was permitted under fair use. But a big factor was that the consumer was not going to sell or in any way profit from recording a TV show. They're going to record it and watch it themselves. It was used for time shifting, and there's no profit incentive. ChatGPT is certainly, that's not the case. They have models charging monthly fees, and they're valued, I believe, at the latest value is like $29 billion based on the profit that they're making. So it's going to be a stretch to qualify under fair use.
So then, by that logic, is OpenAI violating the rights of millions of internet users because it's using people's social media comments, posts, blog posts, etc.?
Yeah, in fact, it's been said that they may very well be the biggest copyright infringer in the history of the world. Of course, their strongest defense is going to be, we are not copying from the original work itself, but we're scraping internet databases on millions, billions of potential consumers and compiling something based on that, not a violation of the original author's work. I think the detail in the summary is going to be a big factor. And then in order to persuade, I think, anyone of their claim that they're not copying, they're going to have to reveal their methodology and their databases. And that, in effect, could be that could be the death of OpenAI, because even if they win this case, if they reveal their methodology and their database, then they've essentially given away their proprietary edge. That's going to be the real competitive risk to ChatGPT, is how are they going to maintain their edge and be able to maintain their fees if they no longer can claim that they have a unique proprietary system for providing their answers.
All right, thank you so much for the discussion today, John. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Terrific. Pleasure is all mine.
Coming up, Chinese leader Xi Jinping meets the Solomon Islands Prime Minister in Beijing. Islands have agreed to host Chinese police training. And Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says her visit to China was direct and productive. We have some key takeaways from her 4-day trip coming up after the break.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
Welcome back. North Korea has accused the United States of flying spy planes over the country and threatened to shoot them down. That's according to a statement today from state media KCNA News, which quoted North Korea's Ministry of Defense. The statement said that a plane flew into North Korean airspace, quote, dozens of kilometers over its East Sea several times. It also said there's no guarantee that a shocking incident such as the downing of a U.S. Air Force reconnaissance plane will not happen. South Korea's military said North Korea's claim of airspace violation was false.
U.S. air surveillance assets conduct routine reconnaissance flights around the Korean peninsula, and North Korea's claim of airspace violation is not true. We strongly urge the North to immediately stop creating tension with these false claims.
Last month, an American cruise missile submarine made a port call at Busan in South Korea that came amid air and Navy drills being conducted by U.S. and South Korean forces, also involving a U.S. aircraft carrier and heavy bombers. Chinese leader Xi Jinping shook hands with Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare in Beijing today. The 2 leaders agreed to deepen ties. Sogavare also signed a policing deal after an earlier meeting with Chinese Premier Li Qiang. The pact aims to boost Chinese police training in Solomon Islands. Sogavare will be in Beijing until Saturday to officially open an embassy in the city. This is his second visit to China since he took office 4 years ago. Back then, his country switched diplomatic ties from Taiwan to China. Last year, it signed a secret security agreement with China. Washington has been concerned that the deal could give Beijing a military foothold in the South Pacific. To counter Beijing, the White House is planning to reopen its U.S. embassy in the Solomon Islands. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is back from a 4-day trip to China. Yellen says that she told Chinese officials the U.S. won't allow its national security to be compromised, even at the cost of economic interests. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on Yellen's visit to Beijing.
Yellen says talks in Beijing were direct and productive. Although the trip didn't result in any major breakthrough between the 2 countries, Yellen says she was able to press her Chinese counterparts about the regime's unfair economic practices.
Fair treatment is critical so American firms and workers compete on a level playing field and benefit economically from trade and investment with China and the huge market it presents for American goods and services. I also expressed my worries about a recent uptick in coercive actions against American firms.
The visit came just days after China retaliated in a tech war with the U.S. by announcing restrictions on exports of 2 strategic materials needed to make semiconductors, solar panels, and electric vehicles. Yellen says she defended U.S. measures on trade that China claims is hampering its tech industries and assured officials that the U.S. is not looking to decouple from China. She called the idea disastrous for both countries, destabilizing for the world, and virtually impossible to undertake.
We want a dynamic and healthy global economy that is open, free, and fair.
The Treasury Secretary says the U.S. means to diversify critical supply chains and will continue to take necessary targeted actions to protect its national interests and those of its allies.
I feel confident that we will have more frequent and regular communication.
The Commission on the Theft of American Intellectual Property estimated in 2017 that the U.S. economy suffers an annual loss of up to $6 billion due to the Chinese regime's intellectual property theft each year. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
A Chinese-funded power plant promised as a major source of energy for Jordan, what was once considered a landmark project has become a source of bitter controversy, sounding a wake-up call about Beijing's influence in the Middle East. Let's find out more.
Deals surrounding the Ararat power plant put Jordan on the hook for billions of dollars in debt to China. The Middle Eastern desert kingdom lacks natural resources, but boasts the fourth largest concentration of shale oil in the world. Over a decade ago, China came with an offer of building a shale oil station, plus a generous loan aiming at providing 15% of the country's power supply. But extraction has proven costly, risky, and technically challenging. As the project lagged, Jordan struck another deal with Israel in 2014 to import natural gas, and interest in Ararat waned.
Jordan no longer really requires the energy that will be provided by Ararat, but part of the deal, which is so typical of what the Chinese do, is that the price for the sale of the energy from the factory, from Ararat to the state energy company, is above market rate. And so when this plant starts to operate, Jordan will run several $100 million deficit a year. It's just not economical.
If the initial agreement holds, Jordan will have to pay China a staggering $8.4 billion. That's for the power generated by the plant over 30 years. In 2020, Jordan's Ministry of Energy launched international arbitration against Ararat on the grounds of gross unfairness.
Nevertheless, I think Jordan is worried, even if the arbitration succeeds, that China will look to punish Jordan, as it has done with so many other countries.
As the U.S. withdraws, China has turned to building influence in the Middle East, notably through its Belt and Road Initiative. But Jordan's plight is a reminder of Beijing's broader pattern, one that has saddled many Asian and African countries with heavy debt.
And if you have any news tips or feedback for the show, please feel free to email us at news.today@ntd.com. When we come back, from a runaway pig to a frightened goat and a fawn, police across the country find themselves in high-speed wild goose chases. What are the funny stories behind those scenes? Find out when we return on NTD News Today.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
It's a painting that is peaceful. There's a lot of beauty in it. And you forget about whatever you might be worried about.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call
800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now.
800-494-1562.
One single person is sometimes all it takes to change the course of history. With courage and great effort, our ancestors built the pillars we stand on today, leaving us a legacy of art, music, and wisdom. At the heart of almost every culture is our relation and connection with the divine. Today, their profound contemplations, beliefs, and great sacrifices have at times become misunderstood and even ridiculed. With the help of academic experts, we'll shine a new light on some of the most influential and courageous characters in history and the miracles that surround them.
Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have some amusing animal footage from the weekend. We start with a collection of unusual police chases. Police in Louisville, Kentucky took off in pursuit of a runaway pig. Officers and residents were seen chasing the potbelly pig. 2 even fell over in the chase. The officers said they finally managed to corner the pig in a backyard. They used the dog pole to load the animal into a large crate and returned it to its home. In another action-packed high-speed chase, police in Glendale, Arizona went after 2 traffic violators. Officers responded to a call on July 1st that 2 goats were blocking the road. Body cam footage shows officers tracking the goats through front lawns of homes and down the street with the help of residents. After several near misses, the goats were safely apprehended and returned to their owners. And on State Route 32 in Ohio, it was a lost fawn that was stranded. Troops quickly stopped traffic to ensure the safety of both drivers and the frightened animal, but capturing this nimble fawn was no easy task. It skillfully evaded would-be rescuers, but it was eventually caught and returned to the forest. Turning to the water, a San Diego surf park attracted a new visitor, a baby seal named Sammy. He's jumping up on human surfboards to ride the waves. Surfers are careful not to touch him, but he just seems to enjoy the ride. That reported the incident to the SeaWorld, and we're told that despite the unusual behavior, Sammy is a healthy, playful seal. And an underwater music festival in Florida showcased divers dressed as mermaids. The sea-themed playlist featured the Beatles' iconic song Yellow Submarine, and the soundtrack of films like Pirates of the Caribbean and The Little Mermaid. The annual show highlighted the preservation of Lou Key Reef, the only living coral barrier reef in the continental US. A fully functioning Fiat like you've never seen before earns the title of lowest car in the world by literally becoming half the car it used to be.
How low can you go? In the custom lowrider car game, that's the question. Well, a group of talented chop shop enthusiasts in Italy sank to new lows by creating what's being called the world's lowest car you can actually drive. No, you are not seeing things. It's a fully functioning Fiat Panda that was literally cut in half and re-engineered by the cartists at the Carmageddon Collective. The result is a mind-bending effect that makes it look like the car is swimming through the pavement. The fact that the creation resembles a glitch from Grand Theft Auto is perhaps fitting, considering the steering wheel was replaced with more of a video game controller. So the cramped driver inside this kooky custom ride can get the lowdown while they lay down, cruising all around town, inches from the ground.
You may have tried different variations of meditation, but have you tried traditional meditation? This ancient method has the ability to truly benefit your health. Here's Gina Marie with Strong Mind and Body.
might have tinkered with meditation in the past, but it may not have worked for you. That's because what you tried was more of a relaxation exercise than a true traditional meditation practice. That's according to Deborah Collins-Parisha, who is a board-certified psychiatric clinical nurse specialist in Connecticut. According to Deborah, traditional meditation has mind, body, and spiritual requirements. It isn't just sitting there and relaxing. The real traditional meditations were originally based in religions, and there was a moral fiber to it. For example, most traditional meditations in the Buddhist tradition require one to follow certain principles. One needs to be a good person, letting go of wants and longings and having a freer and more open mind. Deborah has treated mental illness for more than 15 years. She says you won't get a good night's sleep if your mind is filled with anger, resentment, fighting, arguing, competing, and selfishness. She also added that you can't have good relationships and you can't even have a healthy body. Currently, there are multiple types of meditation being taught and practiced. These include mindfulness meditation, focused meditation, transcendental meditation, and kindness meditation. Although many also have a spiritual element, they are not necessarily traditional meditation. Traditional meditation is most often handed down as a spiritual or religious tradition. It's usually taught by a master or a teacher and is recognized as a legitimate school of practice. Real traditional meditation may help people when other methods don't work. One of Deborah's patients was a combat pilot in the US Air Force. He was exposed to chemicals during warfare, and a few years later he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The patient saw many neurologists and they told him he may be completely paralyzed and bedridden. The distraught patient visited Deborah about twice a month. Over time, their conversations turned more serious because he was facing imminent demise and death. So she introduced him to meditation and ancient Chinese Qigong. The method she introduced him to was called Falun Gong or Falun Dafa. It's a spiritual practice rooted in the Buddhist tradition. The practice encourages practitioners to attune their lives to three principles: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. A 2016 observational study found that many Falun Gong practitioners had regained health from terminal illnesses. Another study showed that Falun Gong practitioners had enhanced immunity compared with non-practitioners. Her patient was skeptical at first but realized it was different from the relaxation techniques he had previously learned. He followed the directions on the website and started practicing the exercises daily. About a year later, he went back to the MS specialist, who was confounded by his current state of health. His health was expected to deteriorate, but had not. That was 4 or 5 years ago. He's now working full-time, is very happy, full of energy, and perfectly healthy. Falun Dafa or Falun Gong is free to learn. More information, including free practice sites across North America, can be located at falundafa.org.
Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Chris Beers.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.